A shady island invents cloning that criminals use to get away with their crimes. Strap in, movie enthusiasts, it's recap time. Today, we will be explaining a film named Infinity Pool from 2023, which will drive you crazy with its psychological thriller. Hope you enjoy the video, so let's start. The film opens with a broke novelist named James and his wife Em, who have come to spend their vacations on an island called Litolka. Despite selecting a resort himself, James feels bored and wishes to leave, which bugs Em and hints that their marriage is in question. Em wants to take James to a Chinese restaurant, but James denies accompanying her and leaves. On his way, he sees a guy causing a scene on his bike. He joins the crowd to watch the biker, but instead, he is approached by a freaky girl named Gabby. Gabby recognizes James for his work and praises him, which immediately amuses him. Gabby introduces James to her much older husband, Albin, who invites James for dinner at the same Chinese restaurant that he refused to go to with Em. James accepts their invitation and shows up with Em at the restaurant. At the dinner table, the two couples are thoroughly introduced. James is a broke writer who lives off of Em's father's money. Gabby is a struggling actress who is currently mastering the art of failing at everything. Albin is an ex-architect who now publishes a journal from Los Angeles. The following night, James and Gabby are attracted to each other while dancing, but no one catches the tension between them. The next morning, Gabby and her husband invite James for a day out of the resort, to which James excitedly agrees, whereas Em is upset and doesn't want to take the risk of getting robbed outside of the resort. James states that he came to Litolka to get inspired, so he must take risks to freshen his mind and body. Setting aside their differences, James and Em meet up with Gabby and Albin outside, who are renting a car from an old resort worker named Thresh. The couples take the car up the west coast and spend the day by the sea. They set up some chairs and grilled sausages to fill their guts. Later that evening, James singles out to pee. Gabby joins him from behind and jerks him off until he ejaculates. Surprised at what's just happened, James looks back at Gabby, but Gabby leaves as if nothing has happened. Subsequently, the couples get drunk and decide to leave when the night falls. Albin claims that he's too drunk to drive, so James volunteers to take the wheel. As he's driving everyone back to the resort, the car headlights stop working for a moment, during which a guy comes in front of their car and gets brutally hit. James and Em panic and decide to call the police, but Gabby furiously warns them of Litolka's not-to-be-trusted laws and takes them back to the resort. At the front gate of the resort, the security doesn't let them in, claiming they have not allowed the visitors to step outside the resort. Gabby and Albin show them their room key cards and make up fake excuses about not knowing how they got drunk and slipped out. Hence, the security guards let them in that night. The next morning, James and Em wake up with a heavy door knocking. When James opens the door, he is met with the local police and resort security. The police take James and Em to their station, where they separate the couple and lock them up in different rooms. James is visited by a detective named Iral Thrush, who has come to collect James's statement regarding the road accident and runaway. Iral reveals that he's the nephew of the guy who rented them the car, so they must not mention his uncle's name in the statement. During the statement, James confesses to his crime when Iral tells him his wife has told him everything about the accident. Now, Iral lays down the state rules according to which the oldest son of the dead victim is to execute James to settle the dispute. James gets petrified to hear the rule, but Iral tells him another alternative, which is specially authorized by the government for tourists like James. The alternative suggests that James pay a heavy fine and give his consent to create a body double, which will be executed instead of James. While James has trouble processing this concept, Iral tells him to sign the papers that demand his consent to be executed. Out of options, James signs the papers and gets measured by the nurses, who take off his gown and send him to a small chamber that starts filling up with dirty red fluids. There, James experiences an ecstatic state in which he sees Gabby dancing naked, along with other freaky happenings. When he gains consciousness, he finds Em by his side, who reveals that the police have successfully made his body double. She takes James downstairs, where he sees his body double. The couple is beyond shocked to see how real the body double looks, so they refuse to watch the body double get executed. Iral points out that they must witness the execution as they aren't given the free will to back out. In the execution, James and Em sit behind the audience and the body double is tied to a wooden pole. The dead victim's oldest son, a 13-year-old kid, shows up with the knife and vigorously stabs the body double's guts until he dies. The body double keeps shouting Em's name, which disturbs Em and causes her to tear up. On the contrary, James smirks, hinting at something suspicious. After the execution, the officers call a cab to take James and Em back to the resort. In a disturbed state, Em wants to leave for the airport and flee from Latolka, but James states he's lost his passport. Em blows up and has a meltdown hearing this. Eventually, the couple gets back to the resort, disappointed. Em expresses her disgust for James for not getting mentally affected by the execution of his body double. With a change in his demeanor, James leaves Em in the room and goes to the reception area to extend their resort stay for a week. There, he watches Gabby in the lounge area. Gabby approaches James and apologizes for everything he has had to go through so far. In order to make it up to him, she invites him over for drinks, where she reveals how last year her husband got into the same situation as his. Alban was constructing a resort in Latolka last year. He was to install an infinity pool in the resort, but an unpredicted tragedy occurred, taking the lives of 2 workers. The owner of the resort accused Alban of the tragedy and got him the death penalty, which landed him and Gabby in the same situation as James's. Now, Gabby insists James mingle with a group of people who have all experienced the same thing as him. Alban welcomes James into the group and introduces him to 2 other couples. An old man from the group starts questioning their existence, which makes James sick to his stomach. The old man believes that the detectives put the real people to death and send their clones out to live for the rest of their lives. James runs to the bathroom and washes his face while feeling confused and disturbed. Gabby joins him and assures him that it's fine to feel like this on the first day after the execution. When she takes James out, the group is getting ready to intrude into the resort owner's house that got Alban and Gabby executed. They ask James to join them in exchange for solving his passport issue. At first, James is uncertain, but there comes a point where he loses his sanity and joins the group. First, they break into one of the resort's rooms to steal some cultural masks that are all horribly disfigured. Each member puts on a mask and goes up the hill in their cars to mess with the guy who got Alban and Gabby executed. At the house, they find the resort owner pleasuring himself with 2 girls. Gabby points the gun towards the resort owner and his girls and takes them to the main lounge. Other group members find medals and good wine to sip, but Gabby is focused on influencing James into shooting the resort owner. Before James can take the shot, a hidden security member opens fire on them. Gabby and his fellows also shoot back, wreaking havoc. Everyone in the group gets hurt, including Alban, so they run back to James' building. Em becomes horrified to see James and his new acquaintances, but James assures her of everything. Subsequently, they hand themselves to the police purposefully, so they can be cloned again. Now, all 7 of them watch their clones get their throats slashed open by the cops and have a good laugh over it. Upon getting back with his clone's ashes, James finds Em to be leaving. Instead of convincing her to stay, he says hurtful things to her and tells her to leave. Later, he is joined by Gabby on the beach, who starts polluting his head by claiming Em was never his type. When she starts making out with James, heavy rainfall takes place, so Gabby asks James to take her back to his place. There, they get high on some Latolkan drugs and get intimate. James experiences the entire group making out with him as the drug kicks in. The next morning, James is still somewhat high and is found misbehaving with others on the breakfast table. One of the group members tells James that Detective Iral has confiscated his passport and he is the actual problem. Alban suggests James should show his dominant side to Iral. Hence, they head to a hospital instead of the police station to kidnap Iral. With a bag put over Iral's head, everyone gets back into the resort and hypes James up. James takes a good whiff of the Latolkan drug and brutally beats up the guy. In the end, Gabby lifts the bag from the detective's head, revealing it to be James' clone instead. James becomes sick and runs to the bathroom. He locks himself up and slides his passport from under the sink, revealing he had purposefully hid it to spend some time with Gabby. Now, he waits for the next morning and takes the first bus to the airport to return to him. Sadly, Gabby and her friends catch him midway and open fire at the bus in order to get him out of there. Now, they make James walk the entire way back to the resort. Gabby, who is lying down on her car's front, reveals to James the horrible truth. According to her confession, she had targeted James so she could get him involved in some horrible act for their personal amusement, but James ran over a person with the rental car and got into trouble himself. As she makes fun of his published book, James attacks her and runs away into the woods. Gabby aimlessly fires in his direction. James gets shot in the leg, but he manages to run. He faints in front of a hut, where two girls take him in and provide aid. He wakes up at night and walks outside, only to find out that Gabby and her friends are waiting for him. They bring out James' clone and force James to stab him to death for their amusement. When James refuses to attack his clone, which they've put on a leash, they unleash the clone on James. In self-defense, James punches his clone to death. Mentally disturbed by his action, James starts crying out loud. Gabby comforts him and takes him back to the resort. In the end, everyone, including James, is seen boarding their flights and bidding each other farewell. The biggest twist unveils when the real James is shown sitting back in the resort. I hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.